Hello, my name is Donna Cryer. I am the CEO and founder of the Global Liver Institute, and I'm very excited to bring to you our Liver Cancer Lessons, an educational series where we bring insights from experts in liver cancer to you, the patient, the caregiver. Today, I have the honor of speaking with Dr. Richard Kim, who is Section Chief of GI Medical Oncology at the Moffitt Cancer Center. Dr. Kim is also a member of the GLI Liver Cancers Council. Welcome, Dr. Kim.
Thank you.
So today we'll be discussing clinical trials. Tell us about what cancer clinical trials entail and how patients can find out about them and enroll in them.
Sure. So I get a lot of questions about clinical trials, and I think it's good that patients are looking for them because it's a new way of getting exposed to a novel drug. Just broadly speaking, there are three types of clinical studies, trials: phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. Phase 1 are usually the trials they're trying to look for toxicity. It's sometimes a first-in-human kind drug sometimes, and the main goal of the phase 1 is trying to look at the toxicity. The phase 2 is going a little bit beyond that. They're looking at sort of efficacy in certain disease type. For example, liver cancer. If there's a phase 2 trial in liver cancer, that means that they're trying to find the efficacy of the combination in those settings. And the phase 3 trials are the large studies that is conducted prior to maybe getting an indication for that label if it's positive. And usually sometimes, but not all the time, are involving placebo. So they usually randomize to a standard arm, which may contain placebo plus a comparison arm. So those are the large overview of what the trials are. And I think the patients are interested in trial because they get exposed to a novel agents. Now there are a lot of trials going on right now in liver cancer that even I cannot keep track of. I think that the best way to figure out where the trials are, obviously one way is there's a website called clinicaltrials.gov that you could go on it and sort of put your diagnosis, what you have, and look for it. Sometimes for the patient, it is overwhelming, okay? They don't know what they're looking at, which is definitely understandable. Then the second best way is to ask your oncologist that you're treating you to ask if there's any trials available, not only at that institution, but other places, because your oncologist may be aware of other institutions that has trials ongoing right now. So that is one of the ways to get exposed to see what's out there and potentially participate in the trial at the end to see if that trial will be the right fit for you.
So in clinicaltrials.gov, and I know that has been a challenge, that is the primary place where all the clinical trials are listed. And so what are some of the more helpful ways if patients do search on clinicaltrials.gov, maybe taking terms from their after visit summary and typing those in, rather, because you could search under liver cancer or HCC or by stage or by type of drug. So there are several options. So we don't want patients sort of overwhelming you as a medical oncologist with information about the web or things they're hearing, but what are things that are useful for patients or family members to guide their search if they want to consider participating in a clinical trial?
Sure. So I think important things when you look at it, you have to understand, obviously, diagnosis, right? You have to see what kind of cancers you have. So hepatocellular carcinoma, you would there. And obviously, and other thing that you want to look at is, what kind of lines of therapy, what I'm saying? Have you received any systemic therapy? So usually there are trials for first line, second line, and third line, okay? So you have to see what you've been through, okay? If you've been through one line of therapy, you may not be eligible for some of the study that only want patients who have never received any kind of therapy. For example, if you have received immunotherapy first line, a lot of trials in immunotherapy second line, you'll be excluded, okay? So you have to see what you have gotten, what you were first line, that's very important. And also the other thing that one must be aware is the lab value. Most of the trials require certain labs to be within the parameter, okay? So for example, if you have a bilirubin that's very, very high, let's say just 4 or 5, then most likely you won't be eligible for any of the study that's out there, because unfortunately most of the trials require you to be fit, with a certain lab parameter to be eligible. So those are some of the aspects that comes into play. Once again, the diagnosis, what stage you have, and like what kind of lines of therapy that you've been through. And that should narrow it down to some degree, okay? However, I think the most important thing is that the fact that it's on the trial.gov, does that mean there are open slots, okay? So obviously, if you have a trial that you're interested in, the best thing is to call the institution up to even ask them whether it's open yet. Even though in the website, it may say it's open, but if you go in reality, it may not be open, or you may be close to accrual, or something else may be going on. So I think you have to do your diligence to follow that up with that as well. So once again, I think that's how I would approach the website. And I think, but last but not least, I think your oncologist is more than happy to help you if you have certain trials that you're interested in. I'm sure it will take them a few seconds to let you know whether you're eligible or not by just looking at the sheet of paper or the one that's on the website. So I think those are some of the resources that's out there that could help you to make the decision.
This is certainly a topic that we'd love to address in our Advanced Advocacy Academy at GLI, about how to dissect and search for the right clinical trials and understand the difference between inclusion and exclusion criteria. But it seems to me that you made a really important point that I want to emphasize about perhaps people asking about clinical trials and planning out with their oncologist sort of a clinical trials as part of their management up front, so that they're not excluded from interesting or potentially valuable trials by drugs that they may take early on. Is that?
Yes, I mean, that's definitely correct. I think the landscape of HCC has evolved in a way that I think as of right now, we do luckily have a lot of agents available for the treatment of liver cancer. However, having said that, there's always a push to make improvement on what we have. And I think that's what the patients are looking for. What we have so far is very good, but can we do better than that? And that's where some of the novel trials are coming up, combining different agents that's out there. So I think that's where we're headed. I think this is where the potential benefit the patient may get, looking to look outside the box, what I call it, to see what else is out there. And obviously, those patients will definitely contribute to the science. Obviously, ultimately making a step forward to the advancement of the treatment of the disease type.
So, Dr. Kim, you also used the word placebo in as part of this discussion, and I want to explore that a little bit more, because often patients are concerned about placebo, thinking that it means that they're just going to get nothing, when really in the context of a clinical trial, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not the expert, you are, but that this, you were really talking about getting standard of care, really excellent care, closely supervised in the clinical trial, versus that standard of care plus a novel drug. So
sure.
the isn't that you're not getting care, that you're not getting anything. It means that you're getting, care or care plus. Is that more of an accurate characterization?
Yes. So the larger studies, as you mentioned, Donna, are usually placebo controlled, right? You're studying a control arm, which sometimes can include placebo plus a experimental arm. And I think most of the trials, if they do have a placebo arm, usually it is in combination with standard arm. So usually you get the standard arm, plus you may get a pill that's maybe placebo or and that could be the case in most of the first-line study. And obviously, there's a 50% chance, let's say, that you may get a placebo arm. But I think the benefit of going on a clinical study is that you're taken care of at that institution, and they really have a close eye on you, you know what I'm saying? So they do watch you very carefully. They do imaging every 2 months. They follow a certain protocol. So I think at minimum, you get the best care that's available out there with a close eye on it. Now, in certain cases, in the third line or second line or third line later on, there's a chance that there's a trial that's being done that uses just complete placebo without a standard arm. So you randomize to an experimental arm versus a just placebo pill, which may not be the real drug. And that's, I think, where I personally get a lot of questions from the patient saying that, hey, doc, I don't want to be just randomized to just a placebo pill and not get active treatment. And usually that trial is being conducted because we don't know what the evidence of any kind of active treatment in the setting is, the benefit of any active treatment in the setting is. That's how some of the trials in HCC was done in a second line or third line setting. Once again, I think the big benefit of that is that even though there's a chance, once again, you may get a placebo, you are once again being taken care of in the institution, at least symptomatically, as well as clinically, if needed, indicated. And obviously, if you do get run into problem in the study or something like that, they're more than happy to help you out to get you over it. And also, as a patient, you are obviously contributing to a science that will eventually, hopefully, lead to helping other patients eventually. I guess that's a big goal here. So I think, yes, placebo sometimes to patient is a concern, but I think it is something that that I think eventually by enrolling in this kind of study that you'll be actually contributing to a science and to ultimately help other patients.
Dr. Kim, I also want to emphasize that point about the fact that in a clinical study, in participating in clinical research, you really are getting that that standard of care at minimum, and the attention of the study team. And as a person of color who cares about clinical research and is very interested in advancing diversity in clinical trials, so that we have medications that we know work for us. I think that understanding of being part of a clinical research, you really do have that team, that study team, and the sponsor team, and the data safety monitoring team, and the IRB, all wrapped around you as a research participant. That should give you confidence about participating. So can you speak to, just for a moment, about the importance of diversity in clinical trial participation?
Sure. I think even here in Tampa, Florida, I think some of the patients are afraid of trials because the two reasons, like you mentioned, one is that they don't want to get a placebo arm, or some patients may have a notion about that trials are for guinea pigs. I'm saying, I think that's some of the common sort of the quotes that I get. However, at the end, the trials are being done from the perspective of the patient safety. I think that's the most important. So the least you could get is that we're watching over you. Like you said, you mentioned there are a lot of, the IRB, our trial coordinators, the physicians, they have a very close eye on you because we need to follow the patients according to the protocol, which is very important. So they get the best care, even though they may get a placebo arm, if they have symptoms, any symptoms, we take it seriously. We give medications or fluids, or we admit the patients to help with the symptom that's needed. So I think at the end, in terms of the trials that's opening right now, I think more and more patients are really getting more open-minded about this, about the trial aspect. And at the end, once again, the goal is to help everybody, right? To help the patients move the goalposts of management of the liver cancer, especially. And I think more and more patients are involved. Patients are looking forward to it, and hopefully, as time goes on, I think I think that diversity hopefully will not be a factor, that all patients will think same and we'll all get involved equally.
I hope so. I know that I'm only alive today because I've sort of stayed one step behind innovations in development of medical therapies. As a GI patient, I have been on every type of, every class of GI medications for my IBD and or my inflammatory bowel disease. And so, I'm only alive today because of clinical research and the continuing innovation. And so, if there's one takeaway or message from this liver cancer lesson, I would hope that everyone from, no matter what, ethnicity or geography, would help in creating a culture of clinical trial participation.
Yes, and I think one of our goals, at least here at Moffitt Cancer Center as well, is to increase the trial accrual for minority. For example, we have Hispanics, African American. I think that's our goal. Each time we do the accrual goal, we want to make sure that they're represented from a community, because we want also for them to get the best care as well.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kim.
Thank you.